Well, hello everyone. Brett Premack, Jazz Video Guy Live. The start of another week here. Today my special guest is a friend of mine who plays, of all instruments, the harmonica. He is perhaps one of the leading jazz harmonica players in the world. His name is Hendrik Meurkens.
Well, Hendrik Meurkens is a great exponent of an instrument which is not a mainstream jazz instrument, but one with which he brings great expertise and great mastery in terms of his harmonica playing. And he's also been welcome on all manner of Brazilian flavored recordings as well.
Mr. Premack.
Yeah, I want to welcome Hendrik Meurkens. Hello, Hendrik.
Hello, how are you?
Okay, that was a track recorded some time back with an incredible rhythm section. You had Dado Moroni, fantastic pianist, Ray Drummond on bass, and the late Jimmy Cobb on drums. You also did a recording of Jimmy last year. What can you tell us about Jimmy Cobb?
Jimmy Cobb is, or was, the connection to the golden age of jazz, I would say. You know, he was there when the classic jazz was at its high point. You know, jazz is a huge field by now. It started, I don't know, maybe 1890 something, and now we're in 2020, and it went all over the place, from classic jazz to bebop to fusion to world music to I don't know what else. But there's a certain part of jazz from maybe the 40s till the mid-60s, which I call the golden age of jazz, at least for me, the swing-oriented, straight-ahead, mainstream stuff. And Jimmy Cobb was right there. He was on all the recordings. He was part of that great rhythm section with Wynton Kelly and Paul Chambers. And that all was a reason for me to get into jazz, and just to be able to play with him several times, touring, recording, and hanging, and it was like being at the supper with Jesus Christ, you know, just being right there, a first-hand experience into the real thing.
So your last album was with Jimmy. What was that called, that album?
That's called Cobb's Pocket. I wrote a tune for Jimmy because Jimmy is known in the jazz world for his pocket. Pocket is what jazz musicians call the time feel, you know, the way you lock in, and Jimmy's time feel was just one of a kind. It's just beyond description. Sounds also simple, you know, just the right hand on the right cymbal, but nobody ever has been able to come close to that. So I wrote a tune called Cobb's Pocket. And it's an organ thing, not a straight, not a piano bass drums album, but it's rather Hammond B3, guitar, and drums.
A message here from one of our viewers. She wants me to tell you that Cha-Cha is here.
That is very good. Cha-Cha is jazz fan number one. She lives in New York, as I do, and she is on all the jazz gigs right there on the first table. And when Cha-Cha smiles, I know I played reasonably well. That still doesn't mean that I myself like it, but somebody else who I respect likes it, so that's always good.
Now, Hendrik, you were born in the Netherlands, but you grew up in Germany. For those of us here, those of our viewers who don't know your music, how did you get into the harmonica? What was the impetus to play that instrument?
It's not that easy. I was actually born in Hamburg, Germany, to a Dutch father and a German mother. I had a Dutch passport before I became an American, but I don't speak Dutch. So I have a German mentality with a former Dutch passport. So yeah, that's just to clear that up. How did I get into, what was the question, into jazz or into the harmonica?
Into the harmonica.
Well, there are two words for it, and only two: Toots Thielemans. There's no other reason, and nothing else has me inspired about the instrument, but that guy just hit home with his sound. It was just the sound when I heard him play a ballad, not even the virtuoso fast jazz stuff, because, you know, for that, if you want to play impressive lines, there are many instruments, saxophone, whatever. You know, you can play bebop lines on many instruments, but if you want to play a ballad and tear somebody's heart out, there's just the harmonicas that can do the job, because it is so melancholy. And it seems like Toots found that. And it also seems like he is probably the only guy who found it and who kept it, because he kind of took it with him too when he left. It's not that he opened the door and all of a sudden everybody plays great like Toots. He established it, he showed the world how it sounds, and then he took it when he left. But Toots was the man who started it for me.
Yeah. Wow, that was beautiful, man. That was Hendrik and Misha. I want to pronounce his name correctly. Tiganov?
Tsiganov.
Siganov, yeah. You are, in some ways, better known outside the United States. I know you've been to Russia. You go to the Orient. You played a jazz festival in Uruguay. You have, we're hoping, a big gig coming up in Germany with the WDR Orchestra. So I guess we could say that you are truly a man of the world.
Yeah, and I just wish that stays like that, and that the airplanes and airlines are going back in business, because I need to leave. I need to go out in the world and spread the message.
Yeah, your message certainly reaches people all over the world. A question from one of our viewers: what instruments do you use? Do you have a special harmonica? Do you have a number of harmonicas? How does that work?
No, I just play a regular chromatic in C. I won't name the brand because, I'm not here to advertise anybody, but it's a regular harmonica off the shelf. But I have a guy in Harrisburg, Michael Easton, who takes care of them. He modifies them and repairs them and makes sure they are smooth and nice. But it is a regular chromatic harmonica in C, 3 octaves, off the shelf.
Those who don't know, the harmonica is a jazz instrument. Is it difficult? Now, you play the chromatic harmonica. Does that pose any particular challenges when playing jazz?
Yes, it does, because there is one thing with the harmonica that makes it actually very hard to play jazz on, which is the fact that half of the notes you blow and the other half of the note you inhale. So it's in and out in various combinations, and that interrupts the airflow, obviously. And in jazz, you want to play legato lines. You want to play connected, swinging lines, and not chopped up, like chopping wood in the backyard. So in order to make it swing and sound nice, you have to spend some time on it. That is the one challenge, the one technical challenge that the instrument has. Other than that, no. All the notes are there, the expression is there, it's a horn, you can find your own voice, and it has all the tools to play emotional, but in order to make it swing, that's a piece of work, yes.
Well, you certainly rose to the challenge. Excuse me. Now, I know you also play the vibes. We'll look at some video of you playing the vibes. Why the vibraphone?
Yeah, good question. Why anything? I heard Lionel Hampton, I like that as much as I heard Toots and liked the harmonica, and that started that. Then I investigated the vibes, and I bought LPs from Lionel Hampton, and then after that came Milt Jackson and all the good stuff. Usually it's one player that starts the journey, and from there you're on your own. The combination of harmonica and vibes, there is no reason and there's no benefit to it. It's just what happened. It could also been bagpipes or trombone or whatever. But those two were the ones that hit the button back in the day. And here I am, 300 years later.
you've done some collaborating with Paquito. Could you say a few words about Paquito de Rivera?
Yeah, when I was still in Germany in the 80s, Dizzy Gillespie had the United Nations Orchestra, I think that was the name. And Paquito was in it, and Claudio, and Arturo Sandoval, and Ignacio Bajo, and everything. And it was like the symbol of Latin jazz or Brazilian jazz. And that's how I got to know Paquito and Claudio. And Paquito is Paquito. He's a legend. He's a giant. He's a pillar of Afro. Well, actually, Paquito is special because he studies all of Latin American music. You know, it's not just Brazilian and Cuban. He does everything. You know, Colombian, Chilean. I don't know what's all those countries that are there. He goes in there and studies the style. And of course, he is a great guy, a very charismatic personality, always in a good mood, and it's very inspiring to be around him.
You also mentioned Claudio Roditi. Could you please say a few words about our trumpet friend?
Yes, Claudio just passed away in January. Claudio Roditi was the and remains the king of samba jazz. You know, samba jazz is an actual style, as is Afro-Cuban jazz, and there are many people playing it, and I'm trying, and there are other guys, many of them great, but Claudio was just the king because he had complete understanding of the jazz language, and being Brazilian, of course, the intuitive Brazilian phrasing. And there was nobody who played that music so great. And he was another guy, a very giving personality, very charismatic. He took me under his wings when I came to New York in '92. He showed me around. He said, this guy can play. You know, this the guy from Germany, he can play. Check him out. Now, that helps, you know, if somebody who is respected like that lays it on them. So, yeah, that was great.
I am 100% self-taught on the harmonica. I found out where the notes are. I knew which notes I needed to play in order to get the music out of it, so I just practiced, I guess. Trial and error, nothing else. I think mastering an instrument and getting sounds out of it, that's it for me. Instrument, having it, especially wind instrument, getting a beautiful sound and growing together with the instrument, becoming one with the instrument, and subconsciously, even if you're in bad shape physically, having it come out through the instrument, there is no greater challenge, no greater joy.
have a strong interest in Brazilian music. How did that start?
As all these things start, you hear it and you know it's for you. Yeah, it's like jazz. Why does somebody in Germany like either jazz or Brazilian music? It's just affinity. It just hits a nerve. What I do like about Brazilian music is they never lose the beauty. Even if it gets very exciting and energetic, they are incapable of playing something ugly or hit you over the head with a hammer. Other styles can go really left and they lose me. Brazilian music doesn't have that. It always sounds melodic.
You didn't grow up in Brazil, though. Was it difficult to get into the rhythms of Brazilian music?
Style you learn, that's not your native style, takes work and takes understanding. And sometimes I think that being from Europe, you don't really have a very deeply engraved rhythmic identity. Europe is really 4/4, basic, straight ahead, marching rhythm or whatever. And then if you learn jazz, then you have to learn that. Or if you learn Brazilian music, you have to learn that. Or if you learn Cuban music, you have to learn that. But if you are from a country that has a very strong rhythmic identity, like if you're Brazilian and you phrase music naturally in a Brazilian way, it might be harder to shake that off and learn another rhythmic identity. That's my theory. I could be completely wrong, but I think that's what it is. Basically, when you grow up somewhere, you have a mother tongue that you speak with the accent of your hometown, and you like certain foods, and you listen to and play music in a certain way. That's also, all of that is part of your cultural package. But the world is big and there are many musical styles to learn, and every time you get into something that is not your native language musically, you have to find ways to learn that. And I'm not claiming that I'm close to any of these things, but I'm trying.
Hendrik, you like playing straight ahead and Brazilian music.
Yes, I do. Both of them equally passionate, but they are complete different animals. And in order to, everybody says you got to be able to play everything and all the styles. That's all nice, but you get the best results if you play Brazilian music with a great rhythm section, hopefully many Brazilians in the band, and you get the best results to play straight ahead if you have a real straight ahead jazz rhythm section. So I usually divide those two things. I either have a Brazilian project or I have a jazz project, but both mean a lot to me. Of course, there are some great examples. Mark Walker, for instance, Paquito's drummer, he's one of the guys. Of course, it's not about the genes, it's about getting it. There are some people who can learn another language and speak it without any accent. Or how about actors that learn other accents and are believable? You can. There are no rules. There are no biological rules that you cannot. If you spend the time and if you have talent enough to get the rhythmic identity, of course you can. Even Germans can. Oh, can you believe that? Well, if you have double notes, you can tongue a little bit. And for the harmonica, there are two completely different embouchures. One is called the spitting position, which is kind of like, sucking on a straw. You make a small hole for one note, and then you have the tongue available to do what tongues do, is attack and articulate. And another embouchure is called the tongue blocking, where the tongue blocks the open holes and you only get one note that way. But that style of doing it, then you don't have all these articulation possibilities. So there is one option is to actually do it with the tongue, and the other one is with breath. It's just a lot of things is breath. Also, since you're already inhaling and exhaling, and all these things are already an unwanted attack, you find ways to do it. There are ways to do it. I got, I think, 27 CDs by now. There are some, there are some Amazon River, that's a favorite. I like that one. But sometimes I rediscover old albums, and there are moments on it that I think, ooh, that wasn't all that bad, The last one with Jimmy Cobb was definitely special. I don't know. There are a lot.
You mentioned Amazon River. I really think that's a masterpiece. The way that came together, very deep recording, certainly. I hope that the listeners can check it out. You had a lot of interesting collab. What's that?
There's a great producer. Oscar Castaneves produced the album. That is a very important thing. You always wonder what a producer does. He produces. He makes sure that the stuff comes out great, and he also makes sure that you don't fall into your old habits and do it the same way you did it before. So he definitely made that album for sure.
Oh, he plays on the album too, right?
Plays and he sings, yes.
Who were your other Brazilian collaborators on that album?
Well, Paquito plays a little bit. He plays a few tunes. Then Dori Caymmi, how about that? He plays guitar and sings his own song, Amazon River. Yeah, and then the great rhythm section, Elio Alves, Nelson Mata, the Duca da Fonseca.
Yeah. Well, you seem to...
Black Lives Matter.
You seem to find great musicians to play with, the pianists like Dado Moroni, Elio Alves, Misha Tikhonov. When you look, which brings up a question, when you look for a piano player, what do you look for in a piano player?
Well, piano player or bassist or drummer. Harmonica is not a saxophone. I need a rhythm section that can burn on a low flame. I don't need exuberant energy. I don't need Elvin Jones. Also, I wouldn't mind if he would come back to play with me. That would be nice. But what I really need is a rhythm section that is delicate but still intense. That's a very, very fine art. Bill Evans Trio, the best, Toots' best recording is really Affinity with Bill Evans. You have a rhythm section that is on slow burn, that have a lot of energy on a not getting into your way manner. So not only the piano player, all these three gentlemen have to have that quality. But, you know, we are in 2020. There are so many great musicians all around the globe now. When I came to America, the first time was 1977, and then for good in 92, it still was that straight ahead jazz was really, you know, really mostly from New York on a certain level. But these people and jazz education and the internet, jazz has migrated around the globe. You find great players all over the place, so here we go. Thanks to the internet, I guess.
Well, the internet is both the deliverer and destroyer, because as you know, we can get just about anything we want on the internet for free. People have stopped paying for music. They're subscribing to Spotify and Apple Music, but nevertheless, the reality is musicians don't get royalties. Have you ever gotten a royalty from Spotify?
Yeah, I think once I got 0.0073 pennies. I don't know. Yes, the best thing about these streaming things is the statements they send you. You know, it's like a 20-page statement with 800 items, and each is 0.000 something cents. It's ridiculous, you know. But it is what it is. At some point, somebody missed the train in there, you know. At some point in the early 2000s, I suppose, when streaming and iTunes and Napster started, the people in charge, which are the record labels and the performing arts societies, they missed the train. They didn't see the danger. They just thought it's temporary, whatever they thought. And the young generation doesn't even know what it means paying for music. There is no need for them. So the whole generation from now onward thinks that music is free. And, you know, I can't blame them. If that's how they were raised, that's what it is. So musicians have to figure out ways to create income. And there is income. Live gigs are there. And it's not that music is dead. But the income sources have changed.
Well, what's happening now is we have a lot of people doing streaming music, especially on Facebook, a lot of instrumentalists. My concern with that is, once again, musicians aren't being compensated. You know, when Spotify and Pandora and these streaming services started, they didn't negotiate with musicians. They negotiated with the record labels. Same thing with YouTube. So the record labels are flourishing, the ones that are left, from Spotify and YouTube. Musicians rarely see any of that money.
Yeah, they also have stock in the streaming companies, the record labels. You know, they are invested. So they are invested in the profit. Of course, artists are not. You sign your agreement, and then you get your payment or not, and the rest is in the hands of the rights owner, which usually are the labels. But man, tell me about it. It's a battle, and people are starting to get more aware of it. I just don't know how you can turn the clock back. You know, I don't know. It's like newspapers, you know. People read newspapers online for free, and then sometimes you get a warning on New York Times or Washington Post. You have your 3 articles free, and now you have to pay and say, okay, then I just go another newspaper and read the same article there. So I don't have the solution, but the danger is obvious.
Yeah, the danger is that musicians are going to have to go out and work other jobs because they can't make money playing music. But we're not going to.
I don't think it's that great. I mean, the theory is that if you do a lot of virtual things, Facebook, YouTube, for free, you create interest in your skills, and then when the gig comes around where somebody actually needs you, you are the first call. That's the thinking about it, and it does work. You know, if I see somebody with interesting videos or he plays great, and there's actually something when I need somebody in that style, that guy is on my radar. So that's the upside. But you know, the question is how many possibilities are there where actually somebody can still actually pay somebody. I don't think musicians necessarily have to completely go into different professions, but you have to rearrange your realities. You know, royalties are gone pretty much.
Yeah, well, the same thing is kind of happening with film. because you can download just about any film. I think we're going through some changes here, not necessarily the music business, but the movie business, with people not going to movie theaters. That's going to have a big impact because a lot of the movie business is based on big budget movies, 100 million, 200 million. Unless people go to the theaters, that's not going to happen. But we're not going to be able to solve those issues today. You did the recording with Jimmy Cobb, which was just fantastic. What is the next recording project you have on the horizon here?
Well, if the virus doesn't give us trouble, I would be going to Cologne in the fall and have a great project with the WDR big band. Michael Mossman is writing the charts and arranging. And that is, I don't know if that becomes an actual CD, but it's a recording. They record everything. So that's the next one. And I had wonderful projects in the book. Oh my God, I had such a beautiful, busy year coming up. And that is not happening anymore. I don't know if you heard about it, but there is a virus out there. So musicians are non-essential. We are the end of the line. When everybody else is already working for 9 months, then they let the musicians out of the cages. You can go try. So that's that. But on the upside, I'm not only a player, I'm also a composer. And the best thing you can do for a composer is to lock him up in a room, give him food every day, and a little basket to relieve himself, and then he will eventually write. So I wrote a lot of stuff, and I'm not complaining. And when things get better, I will record all these things. So,
what is your usual process? You've written some great compositions over the years. Do you write when you're inspired? Do you write on a deadline? How does that work for you?
I sit at my little piano, my Casio Previa electronics something, and I fumble around. And all of a sudden, there might be little things. That could be something. And then I fumble longer and longer and longer, and eventually it becomes a tune. But it's not like Mozart, that I sit at the desk and the symphony is clear in front of my inner ear. I usually start with nothing, and then there's a little idea, and then I work on that, and then I go back next day. It usually is like maybe 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day working on that thing, and then I let it hang and see if it still sounds good the next day. Yeah, I'm not really an assignment composer. I need a tune by Tuesday. No, I wrote when the vibe is right, and this pandemic, that was composer central, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, we have to make some adjustments. One final question here before we go to our final video. John Mathis says, what are the best or most interesting instruments to blend with the harmonica? You mentioned Toots when he played with Bill. That was an incredible collaboration. From your experience, sonically, creatively, what do you blend with best as a harmonica player?
Well, the low brass, if they have a soft tone like trombone, like Raul de Souza, that kind of warm trombone sound, that's a great blend. Alto flute is a great blend. Trumpet, flugelhorn, if the trumpet isn't too brassy. What's not great is like trumpet with harmon mute, because then you have a fight in the frequencies up there, and you can kill cockroaches with that. And I always thought that harmonica doesn't really blend, but I just did this great recording with Russ Spiegel, the big band recording, virtual, and there I am playing with the saxophones, the melody, and it does blend. So maybe there's hope for it. Harmonica is not really a section instrument, definitely not. It's a solo instrument, and it's also how aware you are of tone. I really work on tone, and I want to have a good sound, and I want to sound pleasant and warm, and I don't want to alienate people. So tone is a very important thing for me, and I think over the years I got better at that, and that helps with blending. That does help with blending.
Collaboration in the age of COVID. How did you guys
Yes.
do that?
Yeah, you got to ask Russ Spiegel. I have no idea. He sends the music to everybody, and he has them send the music and the audio back, and then he puts it together. I don't know. It's a miracle. I can't do that. I can just play it.
Well, it looks and it sounds great.
Yeah, I think we're getting there. The technology is there. You know, it's good and it's bad. It's great because it's great, and it's weird because you might get used to the thing that you never have to leave your house again.
Yeah. I want to close out here with one of your compositions, one of my favorite of your compositions, Sambatropolis. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
When did you write that, and what were the circumstances surrounding that?
I wrote that in the early 2000s. Circumstance, the same thing. I had an idea. There was a great piano player here in the scene, Cicinho Teixeira. He was a very swinging piano player from Brazil, obviously, who played in all the Brazilian restaurants, and he had an incredible swing. So first I wrote this song for him, but then nobody could pronounce the name. I can hardly pronounce the name. So I thought, man, it's a beautiful gesture, but nobody's going to play that tune if they can't pronounce the name. So I made it into Sambatropolis, because at that time, and still today, there's a huge Brazilian samba jazz scene in New York. So I call it the Sambatropolis.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to watch and listen to your composition, Sambatropolis. I think this is from the Java Jazz Festival. I'm not sure, one of those festivals. So before we play that, I wanted to thank Hendrik for coming on. Lots of comments on YouTube. One gentleman says, "Thank you for sharing your music and your laid-back sense of humor."
Hey, that's what Germans are for. Man, I had to leave the country because of my humor, They threw me out. They said, "Man, you can't be funny in Germany. Can't do that. You got to go somewhere else. Go." So, tragic.
Well, we're glad you came here. Thank you, Hendrik, and stay safe. And we'll be back, everybody, on Wednesday with Melissa Aldana.